Welcome to my channel. Today I will talk about a different method of orchid care, which I am very pleased with. It is about garlic and orchid care. If you watched it in my previous video, I talked about how much the egg has in orchid care. I've mentioned many tips on eggshell and orchid care. Those who want to look at that video again can. I will add your link below. Among the most asked questions, where to put the orchid in winter was mentioned. I want to point out that especially on days when the days are short and there is not much sun, the orchid must be on a window that receives plenty of light. In winter, I definitely recommend you to put your orchid in front of the window, because the roots of the orchid need lots of light. The more light it gets, the more revitalized the orchid will grow, and the more beautiful flowers and branches will bloom. Second, there are questions about orchid care and what foods we should give. I want to show you this orchid. You will remember in my previous video, at that time it had new branches. Look, as you can see, in a very short time, the branches have grown and they have a lot of buds. It started to bloom. You see, here you see, it has opened little buds on its branch again. Normally, if I hadn't given these nutritional supplements, the orchid wouldn't have opened so many buds in such a short time. You see, an orchid has 3 branches and many buds on it. I actually had a branch where you see it, but I was broken, because I accidentally hit it. Before moving on to the garlic method that I've applied to orchids, I would like to point out that the choice of pot and soil we have chosen for orchids is really important. It must be a transparent flower pot that passes the sun. Look, as you can see, the orchid has roots in the air. Do not try to put them in the pot. These roots allow the orchid to grow faster. Humidity is also very important in orchid care. The inside of the pot should be moist like this. This shows that the water required for the orchid is sufficient. In other words, this moisture in the orchid's pot keeps the roots of the orchid moist and allows it to grow rapidly. Because orchids are already grown in the wetland in the forest, the orchid cannot provide the necessary development in a very dry soil. However, it is necessary to balance the water issue very much. Unfortunately, the most important reason why the orchid roots rot and the flowers fall off and the leaves turn yellow is because we give the orchid too much water. So, too much water will kill the orchid. It is necessary to know this, because it causes the roots of the orchid to rot, and this causes the leaves, flowers and branches of the orchid to fall off in time and leaves turning in yellow. That's why we need to be careful in soil selection. As you can see on the soil, the bark or peat mixture must be of a water-permeable structure. As you can see, I use garlic for the health of the orchid, and I shared this method with you. You know that garlic is very beneficial for humans and has many benefits in plants, because there are plenty of B6, vitamin C, iron, calcium, phosphorus, and sulfur in garlic. Sulfur is very useful for plants, especially since there are 33 types of sulfur, especially when your plants are hot and cold. It makes it resistant to thirst, and the amino acids in it help the plant grow faster and make it healthier. I had already used eggs in the previous management, and I talked about how to use it if you remember the eggshell, since there is plenty of calcium in it. You can use it with peace of mind because all the vitamins are in this garlic. Now I'll tell you how to use it. As you can see, I peel off the skin of 3 cloves of garlic. After I peel off all the skins, I will finely chop the garlic and put it in a jar. Later, I will put the chopped garlic in the jar. I will add water with the water supplement. The water you will use is very important, but definitely use purification water, because I mentioned it in previous videos. In other words, normal tap water is not very good for flowers because it is chlorinated. We must use purification and rested water. Look, I pour a liter of water on 3 cloves of garlic. In this way, after pouring the water, it is necessary to have a jar with a lid, because if it gets air, it won't show its effect much. We close it tightly in this way and keep it overnight. I'll hold the water in the jar and then drain it and give it to the flowers. Yes, we will now filter our garlic juice, which has been waiting for one night, and separate the garlic in it. In other words, when garlic is kept in water like this, the necessary vitamins are already passed in the water. In this way, we should not pour it into flowers without straining it, because if we pour it without straining, the grains of garlic can burn the roots of the orchid, just the juice that is necessary for us. Yes, as you can see the water, I will now filter it in a strainer. Yes, I drain the water. As you can see, I put my water in a plate. I will water my flower using the dipping method. I would like to point out beforehand that we can understand from its roots that the orchid needs water, if it is grey in this way, if our roots are not light green. Then it is time to water the orchid. Now, am I going to water this orchid? Yes, look, I want to show it on the other part. As you can see, there is enough moisture already, as it appears from the outside inside the flower part. Too much, just like a little soil dry over it. So it is not time for me to water this flower yet, because its roots haven't turned grey yet. Yes, look, as you can see, I watered this way by dipping method. This method is very important. Look, when you put it in the pot and when we dip it. It drains the water because the holes are big enough. However, not much water may reach the upper part of it. Therefore, we can water it slowly from the top with a spoon so that the upper soil and upper air roots can get enough water. Thus, it will have enough water in the topsoil. We need to keep the orchid in this container for a maximum of half an hour. At the end of half an hour, we can filter the water of the pot and take it into its own plate. But let's put the flower part aside, which is important here, and wait. Let's be sure that the water under it is drained. Because if there is any water accumulating under the part, it causes the roots under the part to rot. This is one of the tricks we should pay attention to. One of the other methods is that if you know that the soil in the part has enough water, but you have noticed that the topsoil is dry, we can occasionally water our soil from the top by placing some water in a spraying container. We can help the leaves get the necessary air by spraying the leaves with water in this way. But here we need to be careful that no water gets between the leaves, because, unfortunately, the excess water entering between the leaves can cause our flower to rot over time. If you like this video, do not forget to subscribe my channel and press the like button. Do not forget to turn on the ring to be notified of my new videos. Goodbye and stay healthy.